Hello everyone, I'm Josefa and in this video we are going to discuss about big data and data analytics. So let's dive right into it. So in this lesson we introduce you to the concepts of big data and data analytics solutions and how you can deal with large data sets and how to produce meaningful insights from the data. And then we introduce you to the concepts of 5 V's of data analysis and what are the possible challenges you will face while designing your whole data analysis pipeline. So these are the things that we will cover in this particular course. The topic number one is big data and data analytics solutions. So, first of all, we will discuss the definitions of big data and data analytics. So, big data simply refers to extremely large data sets, plus, along with it, the complexity of data. And then the data is evolving every day. So, to handle that, because the traditional databases doesn't have that much capacity, so for that, we have data warehouses and data lake solutions to cater that kind of data. So, data analytics. Data analytics is the process of analyzing the data and producing meaningful insights from the data. So, these techniques are applied on the big data, but it is not mandatory to apply these techniques on big data. We can apply these techniques on small data sets as well. So, data analytics is basically vital to any business, either it is a small business or a large business, because whenever a business needs to make a decision regarding their sales, regarding how many number of products they need to produce next month, and these decisions are made based on the data. So if a company is making certain decisions without analyzing their data, then they are making decision based on pure luck. So the proper big companies make decisions based on their data. They check like what are the number of sales they have made previous months and what is the growth rate, and according to that their different data analysis solutions they have prepared, and from there they check like what is the estimated sale, and then they prepare their products accordingly. So, when businesses start to implement this data analytics solution, they face a lot of different challenges based on the variety of data, based on the velocity of data, how much data is coming in. Previously, these problems are catered as big data challenges, but now it comes under the umbrella of data analytics. So this course will help you identify the data analytics solution that best fit your needs and how to implement that in your particular environment. So organizations spend millions of dollars on data storage. So the problem isn't finding the data or storing the data. The problem is how you can find meaningful insights from that particular data that you have saved over last recent years or over the decades. How to find that data, how to utilize that data. Big data is an industry term that has changed in the recent year. Big data solutions are now mostly part of the data analytics solutions. So now moving forward to the benefits of data analytics. First one we have is customer personalization. Based on the user buying habits, we can get to know which product should be recommended to the user more. For instance, a person is interested in buying a mobile phone, for instance, iPhone, then on the social media apps, that particular advertisement related to iPhone will be promoted and will be shown to that user more rather than other ads. So that's how it works. And the second one is fraud detection. We can get to know if a transaction is fraudulent or not. So how we can do that is, if a customer for instance makes a transaction using the mobile app of provided by the bank, and he makes a transaction that is unusual based on the transaction history, then the system will detect that unusual activity, and that transaction will be pending and will require some approval. And the third one is security threat detection. Based on the usage pattern, we can also detect the security threats. So, for example, we take an example of a camera that is installed outside a person's house. So, that is recording all the activity performed outside the house. Whoever comes in, goes out. If a camera detects something that is unusual, if a person is jumping over a wall, then in that case, that system will detect that security risk and will inform the user. So the next one is user behavior. Based on the user usage history, we can detect the user behavior patterns. So for instance, we have nowadays different social media platforms. If a person is using those platforms, these platforms are showing different content. It can be an image content or a video or a textual feed. So, but these platforms are checking what are the different posts that user is clicking on more and is spending more time on. Based on that, they get to know about the user behavior and will promote more content related to that. So the person stays on the platform for a longer duration of time, and use by doing that, the platform can show more ads, and then this data can also be used in showing personalized ads to the users, so not showing irrelevant ads. If a user see a relevant ad, then there is a more chance that user will click on it and then will eventually buy that. So the next one we have is financial modeling and forecasting. Based on the financial data of past, we can predict the future market and future market trends. For example, there are numerous websites that tells you if a company share will go up or down. So how they do that is, so they check the past data and they analyze that. Other than that, they also gather the data related to current situation of a country, and then there are other factors involved as well. Based on all the factors, the government and the country crisis, and if a company is growing, and based on all that, they can predict if the financial market of a particular share, or if it is a bitcoin, if that thing will go up or down. So the next one we have is real time alerts. So we can also get real time alerts if there is any problem, so using data analysis. So for instance, nowadays all of us have a smartwatch. So if a person is wearing a smartwatch, and the blood pressure rate drops very drastically low, so in that case, that person family members will be informed that the blood pressure rate is dropped very significantly, and you should check on that person. So now we will discuss a case study. Imagine an organization that is growing rapidly. So we have two-person here. One is Kylie. Kylie is the head of organization that have a lot of new user, and they are growing very rapidly, and Kylie needs to design a data analysis solution. So Gary is a data analysis expert. Gary have designed many different data analysis solution. So Kylie asked Gary that I have 800 TB of data and need real time insights on that particular data to make efficient decisions. So, how I can do that? So, Gary replied that the volume and the velocity of the data are the two main factors that you need to consider while designing your data analysis solution. So now moving forward, we have characteristics of big data. So data is generated in many ways. So the big question is where to put that data, how to analyze it, and how to generate meaningful insight from that particular data. So the all of the challenges that we face while this data analysis solution, they are characterized in 5 V's. So, what are the 5 V's of data analysis? The first one is volume, the second one is velocity, the third one is variety, and the fourth one is veracity, and the fifth one is value. Not all organizations face similar problem. It depends upon the organization. Some organization face problem related to storing data from different sources, and some organization face problem related to storing a large amount of data, the data that is in TBs. So and then in other cases, some organization face problem while analyzing that data in real time, and they need some alerts based on that data. So depending upon the situation, the challenges that organization face will be different. So, what are the components of data analysis solution? We have basically four components. The first one is ingesting and collecting of data, because the data is coming from different sources. It can be that the data is coming from different logs. It can be that the data is coming from different IoT devices. Nowadays, we have smartwatches. Nowadays, like all the devices are smart and they are connected to internet. When we have like different data coming from different sources, how we need to collect that and how we need to store that. So the second point is basically storing that data, because the data is coming from different sources. So it can be that some data is structured, and then the some data is unstructured, some data is semi structured. So how we need to store that. And then the third part is process and analyze. So we have all the data from different sources. So how we need to analyze that data, how we need to process that data to produce meaningful insight. So that is the third step. And then the fourth step is consuming and visualizing it. Now we have the data stored, now the data is processed, and the data is stored in some data warehouse or data lake. But now the main thing is how we need to visualize it to get more insights from the data. For that, we design different dashboards, different reports, and we need to consume that data more efficiently. And it varies based on different organization, different data analysis solutions. Some people need dashboards, some people need reports, static reports. So now moving forward to the topic 2, that is introduction to the challenges of data analytics. So now moving forward to the challenges of data analytics, due to the increase in volume, velocity, variety, veracity, and value of data, some of the data management challenges cannot be solved with traditional databases and processing solutions. So that's where data analysis solutions comes in. So now we will discuss in detail all the 5 challenges that you can face while designing your data analysis pipeline. So the first one is volume. Volume basically means the amount of data that will be ingested by your system. So this data can be huge. So your system should be designed in a way that it can handle large amount of data sets. So nowadays we have distributed systems, so all the data is not stored in one particular server. So we have distributed servers. Some of the data is stored in one server, some of the data is stored in another server. So based on mostly in most cases, the way it is designed is that we have different servers on different vicinities. So the data is distributed based on the user location, based on user IP. The data is stored in the server nearby that particular user. And based on that, so we have to make sure that our system is designed in a way that it can handle traffic spikes, so it will not fail if we have a large amount of data coming in at particular time period. So the system should have distributed storage option available. So the next one is velocity. Velocity basically mean the speed of data entering into our solution. So nowadays, mostly all the organization need real-time ingestion of data into the solution. So the solution should be prepared in a way that it can handle a large amount of data inserted into the system very efficiently. So it should not be the case that the data is being inserted and it is taking a lot of time. So the data should be inserted into the system very quickly. So and nowadays, like, the companies have requirements that the data should be inserted, the data should be processed, and we should get the insights in real time. So for that, the first main factor is the velocity of data. Velocity means that how fast our system can ingest all that data from different sources. So the next one is variety. So the data comes from different sources, and the different data have different data types. Some data is in structured form, some data is in unstructured form, and then we have semi-structured data. So our system should be designed in a way that it can handle different source of data, and it can handle different types of data. So we take an example of a banking solution. So in that case, we have like different sorts of data, different types of data, all the transactions data and users data. It is in structured form, and usually in most cases, it is stored in relational databases, and it is very structured. So we have that data coming in into our solution. Then we have audit logs as well. So whatever the operation is being performed by the bank operating staff, or whatever the actions that is being taken by the user, every action, every click is stored into the system in audit log tables. So that data can be semi structured. And then we have different devices, like different camera feeds or different devices that are also sending in the data, that can be in a form of fully unstructured data. So in banks, we have like different cameras installed everywhere so that we can see that there is no fraud going on. So that data is also being stored. It is in the form of video, so it is unstructured. In this example, you can see like we have different sorts of data. We have like structured data, unstructured data, then we have video data. We can also have like some images. We can have like a camera that is continuously taking images and then analyzing it. So we can have different sorts of data, and the data is being inserted into the system from different uh, locations. And so the next point is veracity. Veracity basically means the degree to which the data is accurate. So, whatever data that we have collected in previous stages and we have analyzed it, now we have to check whether that data is trustworthy or not. And then we need to process it. If we have some outliers, then we need to clean that data and then store it into another location. So then we can perform different then we can create like different dashboards and reports from that data. So to check the trustworthiness of that data, that is very important. So for that, we also might need to track the data source as well, from where that data is coming. And we also need to check like for instance, in username column, if we have some numeric number like 1 2 3 4 5, so that cannot be a name of a person, of an actual person. So then we get to know that this is some testing data or someone is spamming the system. So we will remove that particular record from being inserted into the system for data analysis. So that is very important, because it can be a case that we have some outliers in our database, in our data lake. So we have to process them. So this step is basically called cleansing of data before we actually apply different techniques to get the value from the data. So now the last step is value. Value is the ability of a system to drive insightful information from the data that is being stored and analyzed. So this data will be used by different stakeholders and CEOs to make decisions regarding the company. So the value can be delivered using different reports. We usually create dashboards and different dynamic reports related to the company progress, related to individual products, how they are performing, related to different services, and stuff like that. So now moving forward to planning a data analysis solution. Data analysis solution, as you know from the previous slides, have different steps of storing the data, analyzing the data, and then veracity of data, checking the trustworthiness of data, and then getting the value from the data. But before all that, you need to plan like what is the information, what you need to achieve out of this particular solution. So you need to plan the value first, and then design your whole solution. So know where your data comes from, because your data can come from different sources. It can come from mobile phone devices, from laptop devices. It can so your solution might have different panels, like one panel for end users, one panel for inventory managers, and one panel for data warehousing specialist and stuff like that. So you can have like different sources. You can have like video feeds as well. So you can have like different IoT devices from where the data is also coming into the system. So you need to know what are the possible data sources that will feed the data into my system. And nowadays streaming data source is very popular, and analyzing the data of streaming data source is bit tricky as well. So the streaming data source requires some special software to collect that data and analyze that data, because it is not like traditional data sets and traditional data. So and we also need public data sets, like public data sets of health, population, because we can utilize that data along with our own data to get more insights on our user base, to get more insights on the market that we are dealing in. For example, we have acquired like 10 lakh users for our particular service that we are giving, but using that public data of all the persons who have the access uh, of internet, how many people we have in that particular vicinity, we get to know like we have like 80 lakh people living in this particular area, and right now we have 20 lakh people on our system. So we get to know the stats as well. Using the other public data sets, we can check the target audience, the target market, and the market gap that we can fill in. So know the option for processing your data. So there are many different solutions available to process your data, but there is not like one thing, like there is no one size fit for all approach here. So based on your data, based on your solution, based on what you need out of that particular solution, you might opt different approaches. So in this course, we will go through different AWS services that you can use in all the different steps. So know what you need to learn from your data. So that is very important. You must be prepared, and you must do different experiments. You must be very optimized, and you must put in a lot of efforts, and you must know like what you need to extract from your data, and what is the end goal, what are the stats that you want. So it is very vital to spot trends and make correlation between your data, because if you do all the steps correctly, then your data will produce a lot of meaningful insights. And when you have a lot of meaningful insights, using that particular information, you can spot trends in the future, and using that information, the stakeholders of the company can make very good and concise decision to make the company grow and be more prosperous. So let's put your data to work. So in this lesson, we introduce you to the concepts of big data, data analytics, and data analysis, and what are the challenges you can face while working with large data set and high velocity of data. And then we discussed about the 5 V's of data analysis, and then we discussed some of the questions that you need to explore while designing your data analysis solution. Thank you so much, guys, for watching the video. In the next video, we are going to go in more detail regarding all the AWS services that we can use in all the steps of storing the data, analyzing the data, and extracting meaningful information from the data. So keep watching. And